Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly, deeply challenging topic. We're looking at Pastor Hugh Z. Chang's August 2nd message. He actually delivered this while he was on vacation, taking time to worship with his family at the Daxi Church in Taoyuan. And, what he shared that day touches on something we see absolutely everywhere in our modern culture, even though the text he used is literally thousands of years old. We're talking about that tension between doing things for an audience versus doing things for real, authentic growth.
Matthew 16 warns us, "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Surely I tell you, they have received their reward in full." Now, Pastor Hugh, drawing on John MacArthur's commentary, uses this text to set up this incredibly dramatic contrast. On one side, you've got these ancient attention seekers who just wanted everyone to know exactly how spiritual they were. And on the other side, true believers seeking a genuine connection. It really begs the question, right? When we practice any kind of discipline, who are we actually performing for?
So, here is our roadmap for today. First, the true meaning of fasting. Second, the trap of performative faith. Third, modern testimonies of fasting. And finally, number 4, faith, body, and balance.
Okay, let's dive into section 1, the true meaning of fasting.
The literal Greek definition of fasting is shockingly simple. It just means not eating or abstaining from food. That's the baseline. But as you'll see, by the time of Jesus, the ancient influencers of the day had completely twisted this quiet, personal discipline into this loud, public spectacle.
Which brings us to section 2, the trap of performative faith.
Okay, get this. The Pharisees, basically the religious elite of the day, fasted on Mondays and Thursdays. Now, they claimed it was to honor Moses receiving the law on Mount Sinai, but in reality, Mondays and Thursdays were the busiest market days. The towns were absolutely packed with farmers, merchants, and shoppers. It's essentially the ancient equivalent of scheduling your social media posts for peak algorithm times. They specifically chose those days to guarantee the largest possible audience for their little performance.
The difference between performative and authentic fasting is just staggering. Performative fasters literally put on costumes. They wore tattered clothes, messed up their hair, rubbed ashes on themselves, and even put on pale makeup just to look miserable so people would applaud them. Their motives completely lacked God. Authentic fasting, on the other hand, is pure. It's entirely God-centered and seeks absolutely no human reward. It's an unseen, quiet connection.
So I want to ask you directly, using Pastor Hugh's own reflection questions. When you look at your own habits, whether that's fasting, reading, or really any spiritual discipline, do they make you feel superior? Do your routines breed pride? Do they actually steal pure time away from God because you're too busy worrying about how you look to everyone else? Does it make your worship overly complicated? It's a tough mirror to look into for sure.
Let's move on to section 3, modern testimonies of fasting.
Because authentic fasting isn't just some ancient concept, it takes a lot of different forms today. Our first example is actually from the pastor himself. Recently, he had to undergo a 7-day low-residue diet to prepare for a colonoscopy. He noted that as his food intake dropped day by day, his physical strength naturally dropped too. His speech got a bit slower, he had less energy. But, and this is the absolutely crucial point here, he didn't intentionally act weak just to get sympathy from his congregation. He didn't put on a whole show of suffering. He just quietly and humbly went about his duties.
Now, what's really interesting about this number, 40, is that it represents the massive 40-day fasts, mirroring Jesus' own fast in the wilderness. Pastor Hugh shared that within his circles, church elders have undertaken these intense fasts when facing life's most extreme trials, or when they desperately need to seek God's will for a major decision. But notice the key difference. They don't do this while maintaining their heavy daily workload just to look like martyrs to everyone around them. No, they retreat entirely to focus purely on this intense spiritual preparation.
And then there's this fraction, 1/2. This represents a truly staggering testimony from a deacon at the Baipu Church. Get this, for the last 7-8 years, this deacon only eats one meal every 2 days.
Here is the story behind that. This deacon was facing severe, life-threatening obesity. A Christian doctor advised him to try intermittent fasting. But he didn't just treat it as a crash diet. He looked deeply into biblical fasting, completely adjusting his routine to rely on faith and spiritual connection. He's even become the main promoter for a community fitness initiative for 2025 called Sunshine Grounding Slow Jogging. And remarkably, after 7 or 8 years of eating just one meal every 2 days, his physical strength hasn't decayed at all.
he remains incredibly agile and strong. He basically transformed a dire health crisis into a deeply spiritual, disciplined lifestyle.
All right, Section 4, Faith, Body, and Balance.
We need to be clear here. There is a very fine line between spiritual connection and unhealthy extremes. While Jesus said, "Man shall not live by bread alone," and true fasting relies on God's Spirit to sustain you, Pastor Hugh clearly warns against recklessness. If you perform heavy physical or mental labor, jumping right into an extreme fast, like 40 days or eating every other day without preparation, that will cause severe harm. Fasting should never be reckless, and it definitely shouldn't be used as just another diet purely to fix body image issues.
So how do you actually approach this safely? Well, Step 1, seek proper teaching. Don't just wing it. Step 2, prepare yourself spiritually and mentally. Step 3, rely on faith and God's provision, not just your own fleshy willpower. And Step 4, remember that the whole point is pure, dedicated time with God. It's not just a physical endurance test. It has to be a genuine reliance on the spiritual.
I want to leave you with this final provocative challenge. When you practice your faith, your routines, or your disciplines, whatever that looks like for you, who is your real audience? Are you subconsciously putting on makeup for the crowd in the marketplace, or are you seeking the quiet, unseen approval of God? Pastor Hugh ended his message wishing his listeners a positive alignment of mind, body, and spirit, and I wish the exact same for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, who are you really performing for today?